To start the conversation on learning, we have to start where everybody starts, and that's by talking about tigers. So, this tiger lives in a zoo. So where does it spend all of its time? Inside of a what? Got him. Would you agree that this tiger's life is really, really boring? It agrees with you. Would you also agree that this tiger has like the easiest life a tiger could have? Oh yeah, it doesn't get easier than that. You sit in the box, you have food, water, shelter 24/7. As far as struggle is concerned, I think we could all agree that this zoo tiger doesn't struggle very much. A zoo tiger doesn't struggle because it doesn't face the things that lead to struggle: problems, challenges, obstacles, change. Those four things don't happen in the zoo. Not many problems to solve in the cage. Definitely not much change to deal with. So for the most part, a zoo tiger will not struggle. So if one end of the tiger spectrum would be a tiger living in the zoo, what would the opposite be? A tiger living where? In the wild. Now we know a few things about the jungle tiger's life. One, it's way more difficult than a zoo tiger's life because jungle tigers are on their own. They have to hunt, find water, protect themselves every day. Also, jungle tigers can't pick and choose what they're good at. A jungle tiger can't go out to find food and come up empty-handed and go, hunting's not for me. That approach probably won't work in the jungle. We have to be able to adapt and do it all. As far as struggle is concerned, the amount of struggle that a jungle tiger would face compared to a zoo tiger, off the charts. Every day, in one way or the other, it faces a challenge. It has to move through an obstacle. It has to solve a problem. It will struggle every day. So we have two very different environments here. My question to you, what would happen if we took a zoo tiger from over here and put it into the jungle? It's in trouble. And it's easy to see why. If we spend our whole life in the cage and then we're thrown into the jungle, we don't stand a chance. We don't know how to hunt because we've never had to hunt. Now, there are no guarantees, but I think we could agree that the jungle tiger has a better chance of surviving in the wild than the zoo tiger does. And this wasn't about the tiger's tools. Like, both tigers had the same tools. They both had stripes and teeth and a tail. The difference between the two tigers were the skills they developed and the environment that led to those skills. The environment that was more difficult, that one that involved some problems and challenges, allowed the jungle tiger to do something that the zoo tiger could not. Now, some of you are picking up on this, that this is not a story about tigers at all. This is a story about us. This is a story about you and me. This is a story about how people learn. I think I have the coolest job in the world because I get to travel all over the place and do workshops about learning. I've worked with Target, Ferrari, Microsoft. I've worked in prisons. I've worked with Major League Baseball teams, college football programs, and I love that part of the job, teaching. But to me, the most interesting part about my job is how much I get to learn and the people I get to learn from. Hanging out with the people in the trenches, the scientists and professors, the people that have been studying learning for literally decades. That's the most fascinating part of my job. One big pattern to come out of that research on how we grow and get better is that no matter who we are, no matter how old we are, and no matter what skill we're trying to develop, the best learning happens when we operate at the edge of our abilities and a little out of our comfort zone. That's a word we've heard a lot today. The truth about comfort zones, everyone has one. They come in all shapes and sizes. It could be a skill, it could be a sport, it could be a person, it could be a place, it could be a job. If we spend all of our time in our comfort zone, yes, it's easier there. Yes, we look better there. Yes, we don't struggle very much there. In other words, our comfort zone is the zoo. And just like the zoo tiger, if we do only the things that are easy and comfortable, we're sort of limiting our development. What I'm really trying to say is we're built to learn like jungle tigers. We're built to learn when we get out of our comfort zone and have to face some challenges, when we have to struggle. Here's the cool part. You already know this. Everybody knows this. I've given the jungle tiger talk to kindergarten students before. They sit there for a second, they go, yep, jungle tiger approach, way better. Which means they understand the underlying message of this argument. Which means so do we. In fact, getting out of your comfort zone, that's like the biggest cliche of all time. Everyone talks about it. I think the problem here isn't that we don't understand we need to get out of our comfort zone. The problem here is tigers don't have a choice, but we do. Like, a tiger either lives in the zoo, lives in the jungle. That's not changing. We get a choice. Every day, no matter who we are or what we do, we're presented jungle tiger moments, problems, challenges, obstacles, change. When we're presented a jungle tiger moment, we get to choose what to do with it. We can choose to learn from it and experience it, or we could choose to try to avoid it and hide from it. The choice being to jungle tiger those situations, or we can choose to zoo tiger. And that's a choice we all make multiple times a day. If we're going to be real with one another, more times than not, when we're presented a jungle tiger moment, we usually end up in the zoo. We choose to stay in the zoo. The question I want you to think about for a second is, why might that be? Why do you think we choose to zoo tiger when on paper we understand that we need to get out of our comfort zone? While you think about that question, I have a quick video. We found actual footage of a jungle tiger in the wild.
Do it for the boys, man. Next try. Here it is, next try. I'm sick of doing this, guys. That's it. I found it.
That was it.
I found it.
All right, so what can we learn from a video like that? I asked that to some students, and it was actually in Canada, and one goes, "You should wear a shirt and a helmet." Yes, safety first. And look, they didn't bring me in today to teach you how to skateboard. The reason I'm here is to talk about learning, and I think the lessons of how the learning process works are the big ideas that shine from that video. He crashed 20 or 30 times. On the last crash, he's laying there. What did he say? What happened? He goes, "I found it. It clicked." That's an aha moment. That's something we see every day, especially in this arena. Something that we all know, but sometimes we forget, is that the aha moment can't happen without the crashes. Every single crash, in one way or the other, led him to, "I found it." Now, the truth is, that's what learning looks like no matter what we're trying to learn. It's exactly how we learn to walk, ride a bike, write, shoot a basketball, throw a baseball. In fact, there's an ironclad rule of learning that says we're always going to be bad first, period. There's no way around this rule. If we're going to learn something new, we're going to struggle at first. We're going to be bad at first. And it's from the struggle that we grow. Truth is, I don't know you. I don't know the things you've been through, but I guarantee everyone in this room has something they want to get better at. And the people you lead and work with, they have things they want to get better at as well. It would be fun and easy and convenient if we could just skip the struggle step and get good at stuff. But that's not how learning works. We can't land the skateboard without a few crashes. If you're sitting in this room, you've done this hundreds of times. Everyone in this room is really, really, really good at lots of skills. And you should give yourself credit for that. You weren't born with those skills, you've earned them. You built those skills through practice and struggle and experimentation and with time. Jungle tigering is something we do a lot of. It has nothing to do with aggression. To me, when you really get down to the core of jungle tigering and zoo tigering, it's any time we choose the right and better thing over the easy and comfortable thing, we're choosing to jungle tiger. And that could be a small thing like asking a question. That could be working on a project that's a little out of our comfort zone. That could be learning a new drill. Showing up here today, you're jungle tigering. So my argument is we do this a lot. But if we're going to be real, we also zoo tiger a lot as well. Zoo tigering is when we don't ask the question, when we avoid the new project, when we avoid the new science or research that might challenge some of our beliefs. The argument here, if we can jungle tiger sometimes, we could all do it a little more. And if the goal is to grow, I think that's a great approach. I want to circle back to the question I threw out before the video. Why do you think we choose to zoo tiger? I'm going to give you 45 seconds to think about that. You can even work in small groups because there's a lot of answers. Why do you think we choose the zoo tiger? Ready, set, go. Curious to hear some of your answers. What do we got? Why might we choose the zoo tiger when especially we're operating in a learning situation? Any ideas? It's way more comfortable in the zoo, for sure. That's why they call it the comfort zone. Safer, what else? Fear. Do you guys agree with all these answers? I think the truth is we could list hundreds of reasons we might end up in the zoo. And if we're going to be real, some of those things are out of our hands. There's environmental stuff that can certainly get in the way of the learning process. There's environmental stuff that can help the learning process. As far as things that we can control, I think the two biggest reasons we zoo tiger are stories and fear. Stories are what they call limiting beliefs, like I can't learn that, I can't do that. I could talk for about 2 hours about those. I think the other big hurdle we have to deal with is fear. It's the fear of change, the fear of looking bad, the fear of the unknown. I know a few things about stories and fear. One, we all have them. They're universal. Two, in my opinion, they're the biggest hurdles to getting out of our comfort zone. This is my friend. His name is Leighton. He's 6 years old. We were hanging out over the holidays, and we were really bored. I was sitting on a couch, and I decided to show off. I showed him this trick. It's called quarter catching. You put a quarter on your elbow, swing your hand down, and try to catch it. To be honest, it looks pretty cool, but it's like really easy to do. So I did this a few times, and Leighton legit thought I was magic. He's like, oh, you have to show me how to do this. So I showed him a few more times. He decided to try. So he grabs a quarter. He puts it on his arm. He swings his hand down. Completely missed. Picked it back up, put it back on his arm, swung his hand down, and smacked it across the room. Ran and got it one more time, put it on his arm, swung his hand down, missed again. There was no fourth attempt. He goes, that's dumb, and went back to the couch. So would you say in this scenario, 6-year-old Leighton, would you agree, is choosing the zoo tiger? The couch is the comfort zone is the zoo. I think we zoo tiger because of stories and fear. What do you think his story was in this scenario? I can't learn this. Underneath that could be, I'm too young to learn this. I think fear is even easier to understand. It's, I hate not being able to do this. I hate that I'm messing up and it was so easy for you. Stories and fear sent him back to the zoo. The goal with any talk I ever give is simple, to help people jungle tiger more. My old approach to this was through yelling and motivating and saying, you gotta get out of into the jungle, just do it. I think it feels good to present like that, but it might not be the best approach for this stuff. I think the best approach to this stuff is to go slow and talk about stories and fear and what they are and where they come from. The idea now is if we understand the enemies of learning, we're going to win a few more battles and spend a little more time in the jungle. The hard part here is my normal talks are about 7 hours long, and we have about 30 more minutes. So what I want to do today is zoom in on fear. Because I think when we really get down to it, fear might be one of the biggest hurdles to getting out of our comfort zone. And I think you agree, because all the answers that you said out loud were related to fear. The good news is, anybody can learn to overcome our fear. That's a skill we can all develop. But the way to overcome fear is a little different than you might think. No topic that I've learned in the last 8 years has helped me more than this one. First step to understanding fear, overcoming fear, is to really look at sort of where it comes from. Fear is wired in. It comes from a region of our brain called our amygdala. Some people call this your lizard brain. It doesn't really matter what you call it. We know a few things about it. I just wanted to put a lizard on the slide. First, everyone has an amygdala. It lives right by our brain stem. It's like the size of 2 almonds. It's there. One of the main reasons we have an amygdala is for survival. It's there to keep us alive. And one of its most common tactics to keeping us alive is it generates fear to steer us from danger. It uses fear to keep us safe. Which is why I'm walking at the edge of this stage right now in a straight line. I feel fine. I can even go backwards, and I still feel fine. If this was 150 feet high, how would I be feeling right now? Would I be wrapping my toes off the edge? Probably not, because I have an amygdala. And if this was 150 feet high, my amygdala would be freaking out, generating lots of fear, and the fear is there to steer me away from the edge of the cliff, using fear to keep me safe. It's really good at its job. However, there's a problem. Our amygdala doesn't know the difference between the good challenges and the dangerous ones. It doesn't know the difference between the good risks or the bad risks. So its tactic is simple: avoid them all together. There are 4 things that really enhance and generate fear: uncertainty, attention, change, and struggle. Those 4 words could absolutely describe a dangerous scenario, but those 4 words are also present in some of the best learning opportunities. Sports, art, competition, learning in general involves lots of uncertainty, attention, change, and struggle. If you had to define the jungle, uncertainty, struggle, change. The idea is if those 4 things are present, fear will be present. And more times than not, when we feel fear, we find a way to avoid the thing that causes the fear, which is really, really good if we're in danger and really, really crappy for learning. Yes, this keeps me safe from walking too close at the edge of the cliff, but this is also why we feel weird about asking and answering questions. Have you ever been in a group setting where you had a question or you thought you had the answer and you did not share? Give me a head nod if that's ever happened. Without a doubt. This is a big reason that happens. Why do you think we feel some fear about asking or answering a question in a group setting based on this framework? What do you think? What's really going on? What are we avoiding? Judgment. So what word is that associated with? On the board. It's definitely the first 2. If we're in a group setting, we raise our hand and speak up, everyone's listening, a lot of people in the room go, boom. So now we have attention. And of course there's some uncertainty because it might be the wrong answer, might be a dumb question. With uncertainty and attention comes fear. More times than not in that scenario, if we don't ask the question, would you agree, in one way or the other, that's choosing to zoo tiger. We're choosing the comfortable and easy thing. Better example. Back in the day, you have a paper due in 2 weeks. When do we write the paper? I hear you. Or morning of. Procrastination in a big way is coming from the lizard brain. Here's how that works. Every single night leading up to the due date, we have a simple choice. We could sit down and do the research and write the paper, or we could watch Netflix. Which one do you think my lizard brain wants to do? Netflix. You're right, but I'm going to push you on it. Why is my lizard brain going to gravitate towards Netflix? What's really going on? In this scenario, what's it avoiding? Struggle. Here's the truth about the amygdala. It's not that smart. It doesn't know the details of the choice. It's not through its eyes, oh, we could write this paper or watch Netflix. Its world is way more cut and dry than that. Through its framework, in this scenario, it's we could struggle right now or not struggle right now. And it's always going to nudge us towards, well, let's not struggle right now. If you're like me, I'm really good at letting the lizard brain win the battle, and then I come up with lots of justifications. I'm going to watch the entire season of Ozark tonight, but I will definitely do double the writing tomorrow. And that's usually a deal that the lizard wins. Another tactic I use, I call it downgrading struggle. Instead of writing a new article for our website, I'll clean my house twice. So I'm going around feeling active and productive, but what I'm doing is choosing the option that involves less uncertainty, attention, change, or struggle. The argument here, avoiding those 4 things is great when we're in danger. If we're not in danger, it might not be the best approach. This is why we fear public speaking more than texting and driving. One of those things is good for us, one is definitely not. We're way more afraid of this because this involves that. I've been teaching this part of our message for about 2.5 years now. And a question I throw to the group when we have the longer discussion is, identify a time in your life where fear has robbed you of an opportunity to grow. I would say in the last 3 years, I've heard about 10,000 responses from people from all walks of life, all ages. Because the truth is, in this room alone, if we had the time, we could come up with 1,000 examples. When has fear robbed you of an opportunity to grow? Could be a small thing like we had a question didn't ask. Could be a bigger thing like we wanted to apply for a new position, new role, a new job. We talk ourselves out of it because of the uncertainty. Every single day, this is happening. In the last 3 years, there's 3 examples of this that have really stuck with me. One was a 3rd grader. We did this workshop with a group of 12 3rd graders. We asked the same question: when has fear robbed you of an opportunity to grow? This kid gets up and he goes, I play baseball. And in every single game, I tell my coach I'm going to play in right field because no one ever hits the ball there. And he owned it. He goes, I kind of want to play in the infield, but I'm afraid if someone hits a ball at me, I might mess up. I always volunteer to play right. The way he phrased this at the end of the day was pretty cool. He came up, he goes, my lizard tells me to play right field. And he's right, like that's kind of what's happening. I love that example because everyone can relate to that, where there is something we wanted to do, could do, should do. But when the time comes to do it, we end up in right field. That's our comfort zone. That's the zoo. I had a Major League Baseball player, a pitcher, share that in many times at the end of the game, he would throw the easy pitch, not the right pitch. And he owned it. He goes, that's had an impact on the outcome of some games. I love this 1-2 punch of a 3rd grader and a Major League Baseball player talking about fear driving their behavior. There was a high school student from Des Moines. She shared she was in the final qualifying round to get on The Voice, the singing show. She had to sing one more song. If it went well, she's on the show. It came time to sing. She freaked out and left. She shared that in front of a group of classmates, and when she did, there was an audible groan in the room. And I see where they're coming from. That's like a life-changing opportunity that she missed. But here's the truth about fear. It's really easy to sit here and talk about what we could do and should do. And it's even easier to talk about what other people could do and should do. It's easy for us to say, oh, the 3rd grader should play in the infield. He'll be fine. It's easy for us to say, oh, she needs to get on the stage and sing that song. Easy to say, but if we're in their shoes with their experiences, we probably do the same thing because fear is such a powerful emotion. The other thing I want to talk about with her example, because it is relevant. We don't know what would have happened if she sang that song. We don't know how it would shake down. But we do know 2 things. You can't make it on the show unless you sing the song. You can't get the job unless you apply. So it's easy to see that fear can rob us of potential outcomes. But it also gets in the way of something you could argue is even more valuable, and that's the experience. Getting on the stage and singing the song, that's good for her. That will make her better for the next one. Going through the interview process, writing our essays, all of these things are good for us and will help us be better next time, and fear can get in the way of that. Again, this is something we all have. This is something we can all relate to. I could give you 1,000 more examples, but I think we get it. I learned about this topic from this guy. His name is Seth Godin. In the world of business and marketing, the dude is on Mount Rushmore. One of the most brilliant people I will ever interact with in my life. 3 years ago, I had the honor of Skyping with him, and we talked for a few hours about learning. During that conversation, he taught me about fear, the amygdala. I chopped myself out of the screen because as he's teaching me this, my eyes are just this big. So many dots started to connect. I think this is a big reason we zoo tiger. But big picture, what I did, and maybe what you're doing right now, is I started thinking back at all the times fear had messed me up. The one I thought about during the conversation, I actually grew up in the middle of nowhere in Wyoming. And in about 5th grade or so, it was my dream in life to go to school at Duke University. And I was like obsessed with that. I chased that dream with everything I had. Long story short, I was accepted into the school. Probably because they needed someone from Wyoming. So I get out there for my first year of class. At the time, I was like the only person from the state of Wyoming on the campus, and I freaked out. I was way out into the jungle, which means lots of fear. And for the first year of classes at my dream school, I never said one word in a class. I never asked a question, never answered a question, didn't participate in discussion. On the days I was supposed to present, I would skip every single time. Why? Fear. When we're in that state of fear, we start inventing stories. And my big story was, if I say the wrong thing, they're going to know I'm the idiot from Wyoming that doesn't belong here. So wrong, so foolish, but at the time it was the real deal. And that robbed me of a year of getting better at my dream school. And to be honest with you, I was that close to failing out because I was afraid. Let's go back to this conversation with Seth. After that flashback, as he's teaching me this, what do you think I asked him next? Better question. What do you want to know next? We've been going for about 20 minutes talking about all the ways fear gets in the way of stuff. What do you want to know next? I hope that's the question, because if this was the end of the workshop, it kind of sucks. Fear's the worst. See you later. So there is something we can do, and that was the question on my mind too. How do we overcome it? My logic during the conversation was simple. Fear made me bad at learning. If I could get rid of fear, then I can be good at learning. So the question I asked him, word for word, how do you kill the lizard brain? Here's his actual response.
So I'm thrilled you asked the question that way, because that is exactly the wrong question. If you are seeking to destroy, defeat, conquer the lizard brain, you will fail. It cannot be done. Because when you try to fight the lizard brain, you are giving it more power. Your brain is nothing but a chemistry experiment. It's electricity and chemicals. And when you push back on the lizard brain, when you try to reason with the lizard brain, when you just say one more this or one more that or don't worry, it inflames and releases more chemicals. You cannot win. What you can do is dance with the lizard brain. What you can do is realize that the lizard brain is a compass. And then when it freaks out, it is telling you you are on to something. When it freaks out, it's telling you you're about to do something that's brave and bold and powerful. And you should listen to it by doing the opposite of what it wants you to do. That when we listen for the lizard brain and welcome it and thank it for giving us a clue, then we can use it to our own ends. So if you talk to the great artists of all time, of any time, what you see is they do their best work in the moments when part of their brain is telling them it will never work, they'll never amount to anything, they're fraud, they're going to get caught, they're afraid. Those are the moments you say, yes, thank you, and do it anyway.
All right, so how do we get rid of fear? This is the hard part. We don't really get rid of it. Like, our amygdala is not going anywhere, so neither is fear. And once we really accept that and wrap our heads around that, we can start to do what Seth says and dance with fear, sort of do the opposite of what it says. Now, the disclaimer, so you don't sue me someday, is do the opposite of what your fear says when it comes to learning. If we're in danger, please listen to the fear, like it's doing its job. If we zoom out, I think this makes sense. If we know our lizard wants to keep us in the zoo, if we ever do get into the jungle, of course it's going to freak. The freak out is a sign that we're out of our comfort zone. That feeling of discomfort can point us to jungle tiger moments if we know how it works. So now I'm standing up here saying we should use fear and accept fear, and to be honest with you, that's a 180 from how I used to talk about this. I used to go around to the groups we work with and tell people, you have to be fearless or don't be afraid. I guarantee everyone in this room has said that or heard that before. Now that we know how fear works and where it comes from, what's wrong with telling people to be fearless or to not be afraid? One big problem is we can't really get rid of fear, so it's kind of sending the wrong signal. If we're doing something that involves uncertainty, attention, change, or struggle, we're going to feel some fear. And the only way to feel no fear is to not do the thing, to not care about it, or to hold back. And that's not what we want. So logically, if I care and it involves some uncertainty, attention, change, or struggle, I'm going to feel something. The other big problem is this can create some shame around fear and actually make it worse. We're sending the signal, you need to be fearless. That's saying you shouldn't feel fear. If that's our belief, sometimes we try to suppress it, and it can actually make it worse. At Harvard Business School, they did a really simple study that I think is telling. They were studying what they call reappraising fear and anxiety. That's a fancy way of saying changing the way we think and talk about it. In this study, they picked 3 activities that are likely going to freak us out. 1, a math test. 2, public speaking. 3, singing. So in each 3 of these tasks, they had 3 groups of students. Group 1, before they performed the task, was taught, calm down, don't be afraid. Group 2 was the control group, so they gave them no special training or instructions. Just, here you go, do these things. Group 3 was taught, feeling a little anxious or nervous before activities like this is normal. Group 1, calm down, don't be afraid. Group 2, nothing. Group 3, it's okay to feel that. In each 3 of the tasks, which group do you think did the worst? Group 1 did. Group 1 did worse than the group that was told nothing at all. And in each 3 of the tasks, the 3rd group did the best. The group that was taught, fear is normal, fear is expected, it's okay. The singing portion, I think, illustrates the point. Here's how they did it. At the front of the room was a Nintendo Wii, and it was hooked up to a singing game. Each student had to get up alone on the stage and sing Don't Stop Believing in front of everyone. No alcohol involved. The group that was taught, calm down, don't be afraid, scored an average of a 53% on the task. The group that was taught, you're going to feel some fear, that's normal, that's expected, scored an 81. That's a huge boost in performance with a small adjustment to the way we talk about fear. Now, let's get into the weeds and figure out what's happening. Group 1, we tell you, calm down, don't be afraid. Then we put you on the stage where you're probably going to be afraid. How do they interpret the fear? Yeah, it's like, you told me not to feel it, but I do. Something must be wrong. I must not be ready. All of those stories can snowball and make the fear worse, but it's all coming from this idea of, I'm not supposed to feel fear. Group 3, we help you understand that it's okay. Then we put you on the stage where you're probably going to feel some fear. How do they interpret or appraise the fear? It's expected. Doesn't mean it's fun to feel it, but it's just changing the way I'm interpreting this emotion. The big upgrade we're trying to make is for people to understand feeling fear before a jungle tiger moment, a presentation, a test, a big game, a big moment within a game. That doesn't mean something's wrong. It doesn't mean we're not ready. It means we're a human. It means we have an amygdala. Our old school approach to fear paints it as a very negative thing. So we assume if that feeling is there, that's bad, which means I can't or shouldn't do this. With our upgraded approach, we realize that's a human emotion. That doesn't mean I'm not ready. And this small adjustment can have a big impact on our actions, what situations we put ourselves into, and also the way we perform. Liz Gilbert, she wrote a book called Eat, Pray, Love. That's like one of the best-selling books ever. She has a new book called Big Magic, and it's nonfiction. It's about art and creativity. And in Big Magic, she talks a lot about fear. And I think her framework is a great way to remember some of these concepts.
Dearest Fear, Creativity and I are about to go on a road trip. I understand you'll be joining us. Because you always do. I acknowledge that you believe you have an important job to do in my life and you take your job seriously. Apparently your job is to induce complete panic in me whenever I'm about to do anything interesting. And may I say, you are superb at your job. So by all means, keep doing your job if you feel you must, but I will also be doing my job on this road trip, which is to work hard and stay focused. And creativity will be doing its job, which is to remain stimulating and inspiring. There's plenty of room in the minivan for all of us, so make yourself at home, but understand this. Creativity and I are the only ones who will be making any decisions along the way. I recognize and I respect that you're part of this family. I will never exclude you from our activities, but still, your suggestions will not be followed. You are allowed to have a seat, you're allowed to have a voice, but you are not allowed to have a vote. You don't get to touch the roadmaps, you're not allowed to suggest detours, you're not allowed to fiddle with the temperature. Dude, you're not even allowed to choose the freaking snacks. But above all else, my dear old familiar friend, you are absolutely forbidden to drive. And then we head off together, me and Creativity and Fear, side by side, forever, marching once more into the terrifying but marvelous terrain of unknown outcome.
I think that's a great way to remember it. The way I think about it is like, the lizard's always in our van. We can't just kick it out. But what we can do is make sure it sits in the back seat. Because when the lizard is driving, when we're operating out of fear, it looks at every jungle tiger moment as a threat, every problem, challenge, obstacle, or change. When we frame those things as threats, we usually find a way to avoid them. When we're driving and the lizard's in the back, we realize a lot of those jungle tiger moments are actually opportunities. If we can frame them like that, we're more likely to do them, which helps us learn, grow, and get better. I can't say this enough. Dancing with fear is a skill, which means it's something that we get better at through practice. But the hard part is, no matter how many times we do it, it doesn't necessarily mean the fear goes away. I added it up the other day. I've done 1,000 talks like this in the last 3 years, and to be honest with you, my lizard is freaking out right now. Tons of reps, tons of practice, but that doesn't mean the fear goes away. We can get better at dancing with it, but that emotion really doesn't go anywhere. It's just like marathon runners don't stop being tired. They get better at running farther and faster while they're tired. Performers on Broadway don't get rid of the butterflies. They get better at dancing and performing with them because they do it a lot. Because dancing with fear is a skill, that allows us, we can start small. So my argument isn't go home tonight, pick the thing that freaks you out the most, and do it tomorrow. Let's treat it as a skill, feeling fear and doing it anyways. Feeling fear, asking the question anyways. Feeling fear, working on a new drill that might be a little out of our comfort zone. As we get those reps, we start to build that muscle, we can do it a little more often. No one is perfect with this at all. I've been obsessed with this topic for 3 years. My lizard brain wins so many battles still. I think it's about being aware of how it works and treating it as a skill. And this is something that we can help the people around us do as well. Helping people around us know and understand, hey, it's okay to feel fear. Sharing our fears with the people around us. Helping them understand, look, when I was in your shoes before a tryout, I felt afraid too. That's normal. That's such a powerful signal to send to our people. Where did we leave this guy? Can you remember him? On the couch. This is stupid. What happened next was pretty cool. We had a talk about tigers and a talk about lizards. Now, Leighton is 6. I didn't bust out the PowerPoint, but we talked about some of these things. And then I took out my laptop and pulled up a YouTube channel. It's called Learn Quick. There's a guy from Scotland. His name is Mike Boyd, and he tries to learn something new every few weeks, and he posts the videos online. We picked a 6.5-minute video where this guy learned to throw a playing card into an apple from 15 feet away. It took him 5 days to learn how to do this. Leighton watched the video. He saw Mike struggling, experimenting, failing, and then eventually he could nail it. As soon as the video was over, 6.5-minute video, Leighton went, grabbed his quarter, put it back on his arm, swung his hand down, and caught it. Just kidding, he didn't catch it. That's not how it works. He missed. He missed, of course. But this time, he tried for 4 minutes, 50 or 60 attempts. And after 50 or 60 attempts, he was catching the quarter. Then he's doing 2 arms at once. Then he's stacking the quarter and catching those. It couldn't have been a bigger shift from just 10 minutes before. What did the video do for him? What was the value in watching that video for Leighton? I think the video was a reminder to him of what real learning looks like. It wasn't a 5-minute hype-up video with Rocky music. It was a 6.5-minute video of someone actually going through the learning process. It was a reminder that sometimes we tell people it's okay to make mistakes, but the truth is it's necessary. We have to miss a few times or we're never going to catch it. And for Leighton, the whole difference was 4 minutes. That's all he needed to learn the skill, to go from this is stupid back to the couch to being able to do it. Obviously, the skills we're trying to learn here and trying to teach take longer than 4 minutes, but the tactics remain the same. The best learning happens in the jungle, and fear is a big reason we stay in the zoo. Like I said, I could go all day about the story side of the equation. We don't have time for that. But here is what I will give you. One of the most important ideas we can really push is that no matter what we're talking about, the best way to get better at something is by taking action and by doing it. So you could make the argument that jungle tigering in and of itself is a skill. The more that we do that, the better we get. Last month, I scored the interview of my life and had the opportunity to talk to Michael Marisnick. And he's the guy he's known as the father of neuroplasticity, which is a topic I love, we could talk about forever, but it's the idea that we all have the capacity to change our brains. Our brains are capable of changing and learning no matter how old we are. This is a little clip from that interview.
Absolutely, everyone has the capacity to be better at virtually everything. With that understanding, miracles can occur in your capacity to understand or do complicated things that you never thought you'd be able to do. You are designed to be continuously improvable. Nobody's done. Nobody's defined what their limits are. I can tell you whatever you think your limits are, you're wrong. You can be better next week, a little bit, but in a year you can be a lot better at almost anything that matters to you. And that's the way you should think about it. I mean, if I want to be better at these things that matter to me, let's get to work.
That's not an Instagram influencer or random YouTuber saying, we can learn stuff. That's a neuroscientist that's been studying this stuff since 1972. And for someone from that field to be that definitive about, we can all get better, I think that says a lot. Jungle tigering is a skill. Learning is a skill. As we start to do it more, it can snowball, we get better.